broadcasting worldwide from a studio inside global headquarters of RP Enterprises in Kansas City.
Hey, gang! Ladies and gentlemen, Papa's home!
This is the Papa Ron Podcast.
File transfer in progress.
With Ronnie Phillips and Jillian Gregg.
Showtime.
All right, before we get started with episode 41 of the Papa Ron Podcast, we'd like to say a big thank you to Brown Piercy Cattle Company. They have been breeding registered Angus cattle for generations with one thought in mind: quality beef for consumers. Their goal is to deliver prime-graded beef directly to customers' homes more affordably than you can purchase them at the store. Better beef, conveniently delivered at a lower price in the grocery store. Find them online at brownpiercycattle.com. And I think we get to reward ourselves with our own little gift pack of Brown Piercy Cattle because it's a podcast featuring Ronnie and Jillian in episode 31. Yeah.
Thank you for being a guest.
Yeah.
You're welcome for being a guest.
Yes. I'm going to be your guest. Be my guest. Be our guest.
Yeah.
How does that go?
Yeah. My freezer could use a little stock.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely have not been taking advantage of that opportunity like I thought I would. And so hopefully Rob Piercy, Brown Piercy Cattle Company, appreciates the fact that I'm not we are not absolutely abusing that partnership, but we do appreciate them.
But I'm about to because I'm about to get a new oven.
Oh?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So you got an idea of what you want to be making in the oven when you get that meat from Brown Piercy Cattle Company?
Just anything. It's been 3 months.
Yeah.
That I haven't had.
That you haven't had an oven or
oven/stove.
What are you doing? How are you cooking?
Blackstone.
Okay.
And an old school, it is actually old school because it belonged to Matt's dad.
Okay.
So it was probably from, it almost had to be the most recent that it could be, being his dad's, having been his dad's, who's no longer with us. It would be that it was purchased in the
We're talking about
80s.
A grill?
No, this is like an electric skillet.
Oh.
You know, like the old school, it has the plug-in. It's kind of a rounded square.
Grandma crushed the hamburgers on there. Yeah.
Oh, I've crushed a lot of hamburgers in that electric skillet this summer because we got back from vacation in early June and our oven just, I don't know, it spazzed out. It wouldn't turn off, but it wasn't on.
Okay.
Nothing was on, but the broiler was on and wouldn't turn off. So the house is like
burning
hot.
Yeah.
We didn't have the air conditioner on yet because that's a stupid game we play in the summer.
Yep.
And I call Matt at work and I'm like, the broiler's on, but it's not on. It won't turn off. I don't know what to do. He's like, well, just go turn the whole power off to the whole house. And I'm like, oh yeah, because I know how to do that. Cool. I'll just run right out and do that. I'm like, is that downstairs?
It's not like you can get behind the oven to unplug it.
Right. And it was hot to even if I did think I could move it out and unplug. Anyway, so I learned how to turn the power off to the whole house.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so you've gone 3 months without an oven.
Yeah. And that's like Matt has said probably once a week. Have you picked out an oven? Have you picked out an oven? And I have looked some online, but I don't really want to pick. I just want to go to a store and just get it.
Okay.
And I don't even want anything fancy. Like I said, I want.
If you don't want anything fancy, it shouldn't have been that hard to just find something and pick it out.
I know. We just haven't gone. Listen, I love summer. And so I'm like, listen, we are thriving with this electric skillet.
Gotcha.
And the Blackstone. The kids think it's the coolest. Like Charlie's like, this makes the best grilled cheeses I've ever had.
Yeah.
So
everybody's happy.
Everybody's happy. I'm like, I'm not rushing out to go spend the money. I'm not rushing out. Like I have other things.
And you're probably saving a little bit of energy by using the skillet and the Blackstone. I love our Blackstone.
Yeah. Yeah.
You do the hibachi on the Blackstone?
We really haven't done that much of a variety of things on it. For one thing, we haven't had it that long. Like we've just acquired it this summer.
Okay.
So it's really just been kind of in place of grilling. Okay. So
just like steaks hamburgers?
Or chicken or hamburgers or just real basic.
Do you do the simple, just the original hamburger, or you do smash burgers?
We're
Jillian, let me help you out.
We're simple folk, Ronnie.
Welcome to another cooking episode of the Papa Ron Podcast.
What are we doing, actually? There's no one in our other chair.
No, it's just you and I. Just you and I.
Yeah.
And we thought this would be fun because we've never done. Well, I guess we did do this, but it was more about you.
Yeah.
Before you became a fixture to the Papa Ron Podcast.
Right.
Now this is just kind of like, hey, first of all, for those who listen, we are so grateful there's a reason why we haven't been as consistent with our episodes, and we're going to dive into that a little bit. But the people who have reached out, and it was more than I expected. Like, hey, you guys done doing this?
New episode,
so
what's happening?
Yeah, what are you guys doing? What's the deal here? And so life has just kind of got in the way. But before I get into that, let me just say, on the Blackstone, back to the Blackstone.
Back to the cooking show.
Yes. You've got to go, like, I think any of the like True Values or any of those hardware stores, like are distributors or retailers for Blackstone.
Yeah.
And so they will sell accessories.
Yeah.
And one of the things that you need to get is the actual handle smasher for making smash burgers.
Okay.
All right. And if you go to YouTube, there's like a few little, I'll call them recipes, but there's little, and they're so stupid easy. You know, it's just a matter of like, like when you make the smash burger before you don't make the patty.
Okay.
You make it like a third of a cup of just beef in a ball. You make it a ball, and then you put the butter on the Blackstone, and then you put the ball on the butter.
Then ball.
Right. And then you smash it down. You hold it down for like 10 to 15 seconds, and then you get that nice crispy, like,
and it gets super flat.
Yeah, and then it's kind of like a Freddy's or a
Johnny Ray's. Have you ever been to
Johnny Ray's? Absolutely, like Johnny Ray's,
so like
or
that,
like a Culver's. Yes,
something like that. Okay.
Yes, and then you do the salt and pepper, and you mix it up a little bit with the onions, and you could do like sautéed onions or mushrooms on the Blackstone. Not mushrooms. You're not a mushroom. That's right. You're a big texture person. Yeah. Anyway, the point is, a cheeseburger on a grill cannot compete with a smash burger on the Blackstone. And then don't knock it unless you've tried it.
Oh,
and so
absolutely.
The next thing you ever, if you don't do, the next time you do a hamburger on the Blackstone and it's not a smash burger, I'm going to be incredibly disappointed in you.
I'm adding it to my cart there.
The other thing that is really good on a Blackstone is breakfast.
I have had breakfast cooked on a Blackstone, but it was like on a camping trip and somebody else cooked it. But so we haven't done that.
The bacon is much better. And then
the mess is outside. We actually did
that's
bacon.
That's the best part. Do it outside.
Yeah.
Yes.
True. We have done bacon on there.
The eggs, and then it's so much easier. Like, I always struggled when I cooked with doing hash browns in the kitchen because they were always mushy.
Yeah.
You couldn't get that nice crisp.
Yeah.
The Blackstone takes care of that.
But do you smash them with the smasher?
Nope,
or do you just flip them?
Nope, just keep flipping them.
Okay.
So you get the hash browns and the over easy eggs. You use a little bit of the bacon grease from the bacon to use for the over easy eggs. So anyway, that segment of cooking on a Blackstone brought to you by Brown Piercy Cattle Company. I digress. Anyway, so let's get into life. This is just we did this with the idea of like, look, I'm just going to be honest with you. And I think I've said it before. Like, the reason that Jillian and I do this isn't because we want to relive our old radio days. It is fun because we are, I guess, radio veterans or retired radio peeps. Maybe, I don't know. Right. I'm pretty much retired, but Jillian might make a comeback someday. We'll see. She just shakes her head like,
who knows?
Who knows? Anyway, it's really about the opportunity to use our faith in Christianity and creating some faith-based content or with a faith-based foundation, and using this as an opportunity to serve others through various testimonies and stories of others and people that we know through our large network. And, and it's, even if it's people we don't know, it's people that we know who know somebody that they know.
Right.
And so
that happens a lot.
Yeah, for sure. And so that's truly what this is about. We don't make any money doing this. We hope that maybe one day we will. We hope that one day we will, but we're just giving that up to God. And I
can post my Venmo if somebody wants to. Dollar here, dollar there. No, I'm kidding.
Should we put like on our Instagram, Papa Ron Podcast Instagram page, like those Insta famous girls who like have their, what do they call it? The link tree. Yeah. And then you go to their link tree and then it's got all of these, this is my Amazon wish list. And this is my
LTK page, right?
Right. Yeah. Maybe we should do that. No, that just doesn't sound right. But anyway, we hope that one day, we're grateful for Brown Piercy Cattle Company and what they're able to provide us with some meat, but we're hoping that one day that this thing will elevate to another level that, maybe we can make a little, money on the side, but that's not really what this is about. This is more about the message than it is about the money. But the reason you haven't been getting the message is because Jillian has been so busy all summer long.
Not cooking. No, I love summer, and I love the flexibility of summer, and I love, it's like when you get out of a routine. Like I actually don't love routine.
Okay.
I mean, there's parts of it that I do love, like making things like this happen where we have kind of a set schedule. Like we kind of have a recording day, generally speaking.
Right.
But then when summer came, it was like, well, yeah, but we made plans to do this or that. And you had some different things happening with your schedule.
Yeah, I was being facetious. This hasn't been all on you. This is as much on me as it is you.
But anyway, so there is something about, so I'm not saying like, we'll do every summer, we won't have regular podcasts, but I just don't want to give up my flexibility of summer was part of it, for me. And I generally this time of year I'm not going to use big words and make it more dramatic than it is, but I usually have a really hard time this time of year, like emotionally and kind of mentally, because I don't want summer to be over. And I don't want school to start. I don't want to go back to the routine. I don't want my two big kids to be gone every day and leave me alone with Everly. No, I'm kidding. That part's fine. But it's the whole like having to go back to all the routines, and like I like the busy of summer better.
Yeah.
And then I like the weather of summer. Like I don't want to like the leaves falling. And
you don't like fall?
Cooler. I do like fall.
Fall is the best time of year.
It literally takes me till at least the end of September to embrace fall and go, okay, listen, here's what I have to do. I have to go, it does feel nice outside in the morning. It will be okay if I'm not tan anymore. Like these are the ridiculous things that I have to be like, it's okay. I will wear real shoes on my feet at some point and not flip-flops.
Yeah.
And I'll be okay.
I'm really surprised to hear you say this, because for as long as I've known you, you've been a living, breathing calendar countdown to Christmas.
Right. That's the other thing is, as soon as I embrace fall at the end of September, I don't decorate for fall. So once I'm like, okay, summer's over and it's fall and it's getting cool, then it's like Christmas. I'm on to Christmas. It doesn't mean I put up all the decorations.
Do you start shopping in September or October?
Oh, for sure.
Really?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, my wife's like that
for
too.
Sure.
I'm definitely not.
For sure. Yeah. Because I do love Christmas. So
when would you say is the quickest you've been done Christmas shopping for your entire family?
I don't ever get it all done very early.
Okay.
Because I also love getting the perfect thing, the perfect gift. And so that can take time sometimes. Or just like, oh man, if they say something, I could finish in September or earlier or whatever. But then if something comes up or some new thing or whatever, and it's, already the mid December, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm going to figure out how to get it, figure out how to do it, make it work, whatever.
Okay.
So I'm not always in wrapping presents. I hate wrapping presents. Yeah. So there's lots of times that I'm wrapping presents on Christmas Eve till like 2 a.m. because I hate it.
Me too.
And so I'll end up with all these boxes and bags and then that starts building, because it gets, and then I'm overwhelmed and I'm like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to wrap, but then I don't want to do bags because the kids don't want to take things out of bags.
Are you at a place in your family now to where you're past like the gifts that you're giving don't require assembly? So Matt is not up until 2:00 in the morning with you as you're wrapping and he's putting together? For the most part. This last year, Everly got a gymnastics bar. Okay.
From Santa.
Uh-huh.
So that had to not only be hidden until.
Sure.
Right. But then be put together.
Right.
Yeah. So I'm pretty sure this was the last year for that type of.
This is the last year for Santa.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And plus they're old enough now to where it's not like you're putting together battery operated Jeeps.
Right. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly. We've been past that for a while. And really this year we won't have much to buy because I won't say, I guess. You want
to be careful about saying something.
I just a couple weeks ago, well, not even a couple weeks ago, purchased Hudson's birthday / Christmas, like the big gift.
He's a December birthday, isn't he?
December birthday, yeah. December
so you
8th,
get to combine both.
Yeah, which I mean he doesn't love, but I think he'll love this. Is kind of a bigger, so it's not like he won't have anything to open for either thing, but small stuff. And then the girls got both their birthday presents and Christmas presents. Matt says for the next 10 years.
Oh boy.
I don't think that'll really stick. Last month we went on a trip.
Oh, is that the Taylor Swift?
That was very...
The Taylor Swift trip?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I definitely want to hear about that for sure.
Yeah.
So why don't you just tell me about it then?
We went to California to see Taylor Swift.
Which, by the way, I'm a little disappointed and hurt that you didn't even tell me about this. Like,
I know.
We're compadres.
I know.
And I'm on Facebook, and then all of a sudden I'm seeing you at SoFi Stadium. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, SoFi Stadium.
And I'm like, when did she go there? Is this like a memory that she's posting? And I'm like, no, she's there. And I'm like,
it's
what?
Now. I know. I didn't tell hardly anybody ahead of time because, for one thing, it was a surprise to Everly. And we didn't, it was for her. We were like, the Taylor concert was on her birthday, on her 10th birthday. So we left that was a Wednesday. We left on Tuesday. So the day before her birthday. She didn't find out about the trip till like 4 days before we left.
Wow.
So I didn't tell a lot of people because I didn't want, like too many people know, like my parents didn't know, like nobody knew, so that nobody had to like worry about saying something too soon or whatever. And truth be told, part of me not telling her sooner was because I was like anxious that we were going. I was anxious that we were spending that much money because I was like, I could resell those tickets. I could put them back on StubHub. Mm-hmm. And I can use those flight credits another time. Like I'm not really out all this money yet, really. I mean, I am, but I'm not. Like I could recoup it. But I didn't bail on it, obviously, but no. I was very anxious. I was anxious about being the adult in charge.
Okay.
And like I'd never rented a car by myself.
Oh.
I'd never really driven somewhere like in another state.
Have you ever flown by yourself before with the kids?
Last year when we went on vacation was remember when flights were getting canceled all the time and like it was ridiculous. Like and it was always weather related and you're like, where's the weather? Like what are you talking about? So last year when we went to Florida as a family, we had multiple flight cancellations going and coming back.
Okay.
So the girls and I did end up flying just the two of us to get there. Hudson and Matt came later. Okay. And then Hudson and Matt ended up getting canceled and rescheduled to where they had to fly separately of each other.
Oh my.
Which was so stressful.
Yeah.
And let me just tell you, when Hudson had to fly by himself from Kansas City to Florida, he ended up I think he was in the window seat, which was fine. Like that, he liked that. Mm-hmm. The other people in the aisle wouldn't let him go to the bathroom. Let me tell you.
Oh,
I don't think I've ever been so instantly mad.
Yeah.
Furious at someone I didn't know just through the telling of a story. Because like we get to the airport to pick him up. I'm like, how was the flight? How'd it go? And he's like, oh, it was fine. I got to sit at the window seat. He's like, the only bad thing was that I had to go to the bathroom like most of the flight. And I was like, why didn't you go? And he's like, they wouldn't let me out of the aisle. I'm like, who wouldn't let you out of the aisle? And he's like, the two guys sitting in the aisle. And I was like instantly
rage.
Furious.
Yeah.
And I mean, there's nothing to do about it now.
No.
Except be angry at these two strangers.
So, but were they sleeping and he just couldn't wake him up? Like he literally said, excuse me, can I get out? And those guys said no?
No.
Oh, that is terrible.
Can you even imagine?
How old is he? Like
he was 13.
Then 12. Then
no, he was 13 then.
That's terrible.
Like, can you imagine even telling an adult?
No.
Anyone? I was like, why didn't you say something to the flight attendant? And he's like, I mean, of course he didn't know.
He's 13. Yeah.
I go, I mean, I don't even I wouldn't have ever thought I would have had to like prep him for something like that. Like, well, in case someone won't let you out of the aisle.
Yeah, hit the little button up above.
Who would think
to
that
ring
would
the
happen?
Flight attendant? Exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, so that happened, and that was stressful in the time when that happened, just because it was also last minute, like flights getting canceled. But this was anxiety to me because, you hear stories about California, and I'd been to California, but not as an adult and by myself, where I'm in charge of two of my kids.
Yep.
And so I was so nervous, like. I knew we'd have to drive on the 405. You've heard stories about the 405 and the traffic and all this. And so I was nervous about that.
405 sucks.
It really wasn't. No? I think because my anticipation was so just expectant that something would go wrong.
Okay.
Or that something would be an issue. Like I was like, what time? I wonder what time we should leave to head to the stadium because, remember even when Kansas City, when Taylor Swift was here, the traffic was ridiculous.
Sure.
And so I'm like, well, then on top of that, it's the 405. What am I going to do? Like we're going to need to leave at 8 a.m. to go to the stadium,
Exactly.
But the amazing thing was that nothing went wrong the entire trip.
Good.
There was not one hiccup. The one thing that we're driving to the place, we stopped to get some food, and I hadn't gotten the email with my parking pass yet. I had purchased it on StubHub.
Okay.
And I didn't have it. And I'm like, I don't know. That's really weird. And it was like how much was it? $160 is what I paid through StubHub for a parking pass.
$160 for parking.
Right. So I wasn't getting it. So I'm like, surely I'm not going to get through to StubHub customer service to a person. There's no way.
Mm-hmm.
Boom. I was on hold maybe 3 minutes.
Wow.
I was amazed. I tell her what happened. I said, I don't have this. I don't know what happened. She said, let me check into it. She checks into it. Whoever the third party seller, like if you had purchased up a bunch of parking passes and then was reselling it. She's like, yeah, the other party is out of passes. So they don't have the pass. And I was like, how was I going to know that? Like, and then what am I supposed to do? Mm-hmm. She's like, well, we'll ask for a refund. And that was easy. And then I'm like, I don't know how to get a parking pass. Again, all this anxiety starts again of like, okay, I'm in Los Angeles. I like even the neighborhood we were in at the time. I was like, are we in a safe place? I thought that too. I'm like, there's all these places you hear stories about, like, as I'm looking at a map, you like, well, I shouldn't drive there because of the name of the town, right? Because you hear things about Compton or whatever. Yeah. So like, I don't even know where I am really. Like, are we in a safe place? We're just trying to get a Subway sandwich. Like, let me just get a Subway sandwich and find parking. Yeah. Anyway, something I Googled and clicked on the right thing, and I ended up going to like, it wasn't through the stadium. It was like through the city or something, and a parking pass. And it was like, there was no upcharge. I mean, it's still $80, but got it right away. And then we ended up parking like the best parking spot. We were smack in the middle of SoFi and the Kia Forum, which is another venue. Yep. So easy to spot. Like we're right in the middle. Mm-hmm. We ended up parking in C10, which was easy to remember because C for Charlie, and Everly was turning 10 that day. So I'm like, I'll never forget that. Like it was just like everything, all these tiny little things that I was just like, that was amazing. So I ended up actually saving parking money from what I thought.
Yeah, no kidding.
And all these things weren't going to be a hassle, and it was amazing.
Good. And of course the show was phenomenal and
amazing.
Yeah.
And I still, I think back and I think, I wish we would have just gone in Kansas City. Right. And that'd be a lot less money if we'd have just gone in Kansas City. But I don't wish that. Like the trip was.
Did you guys do anything else out beside, like, did you go to the
Hollywood sign or the Walk of Fame?
Yeah, that's a good one. But I was thinking of the, oh my God, the pier that's got the
Santa Monica Pier.
Santa Monica Pier.
We did. Yeah. That's really the only other touristy thing we did, because this was for both the girls and their birthday, but it was actually on Everly's birthday. And like, she's being a kid, like Charlie was totally fine making it all about her and what she wanted to do. Charlie didn't care about anything but the concert. Sure. But Everly had always said she wanted to go to Hollywood someday. And I was like, babe, because see, here's the deal. We started a tradition with Charlie that on your 13th birthday, you get to go on a trip. Oh. With either mom or dad. Okay. And you have like a choice to some extent. We're not going to spend. Mm-hmm. Historically, we're not going to spend a lot of money on a trip.
We're going to go ahead and just, because it's the last child, we'll exceed the expectation a little.
Right. But so that's a 13th birthday trip. Everly just turned 10. Right.
That's right.
So this was also her 13th birthday trip 3 years early. So she will not have another trip.
Oh, okay.
So
that's how you can.
That's part of the deal. But when she told me like several months back that she's like, I think when I turn 13, I want to go to Hollywood. She watches these shows and watches YouTube. I don't even know what she watches. I'm like, oh, babe, why? Oh, because like it's movie stars and all that, whatever. And I'm like, I don't know that I'm going to want to go to Hollywood. I don't think Dad's going to want to go to Hollywood. Mm-hmm. But I mean, you might change your mind in 3 years. We'll see. Right. So then it happens. And I'm like, so what do you want to do? And like, what is it you want? What is there in Hollywood that you even know? Like, I didn't think she knew about the Walk of Fame, right? She didn't know about the Santa Monica Pier, other than she's seen the movie Big. And that's, yeah. she's like, well, the Hollywood sign. And so I'm like, okay, I'll look that up. So you can either drive this route to see it, right? Yep. But then you're just driving past it. You're like, well,
there it is. Sign. So right off the 405.
There's also a tour you can do. That's a hiking tour.
I've heard of that.
And the guy he'll take you. You go up the hill, and then you get to go behind it. But then there's a spot kind of in front of it where it's in the background. You can take a selfie, the whole thing.
Okay.
But it's like a 3-hour hike.
You didn't do that, did you?
Well, I told her, I'm like, we can go do that. We'll spend half of a day.
Yeah.
And we're hiking. Like, I don't know how much of a hike. I don't know how steep. It wasn't hot. It wasn't even, I don't even think it hit 80 while we were there the whole time. I was like, but if you want to do it, that we'll definitely go do that. And she's like, I'd rather just go to the beach. Okay. So we just drove down the coastline and went to a different beach and found the coolest beach.
Which beach did you go to?
We were staying on the Long Beach Peninsula.
Okay.
So we found, and that was also last minute. I booked that Airbnb the night before we left. I had a hotel booked, but I found this Airbnb and I was like, this just looks really cool. And it was like
cozy.
Yeah. And it was perfect. And then we drove down. Oh, what were all those beaches? It was a state park. It was like Crystal Cove State Park.
Isn't
it was
Venice
like
Beach around there?
It was south of Venice Beach.
Yeah.
So we were at Long Beach. Venice Beach was further south. It was still south of Venice Beach.
Okay.
And it was we just driving down the highway and they're like, that looks cool. And so and it was a state park. So you just paid $15. We could have gone to any of the state park beaches along the coast. And
nice.
It was like the Little Mermaid beach is what it looked like. 'Cause it had the rocks that were like up in the sand and it was amazing. Like the whole trip was.
No snafus at all.
Not one.
And you were there 2 nights?
3 nights. We left Tuesday morning, got back late Friday night. So we got in so early that we had all day Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then we went to Santa Monica Pier before we went to the airport Friday. So
good. I'm glad that worked out.
Good. It was so good. And if you've never rented a car from Turo, have you ever done that?
No, never even heard of it.
It's like Airbnb.
Oh.
Or VRBO, but it's cars.
Okay.
So we've done it twice now. We did it for our vacation last year in Florida and then this trip. So
gotta remember that.
Super cool. Super cool.
Well, I'm glad that you had such a great trip. And so that was one reason why we haven't done a podcast. But truth be told, the main reason that we haven't been more, I keep wanting to use the word regular, and it keeps reminding me of being regular in your bowel movements. And so I don't want to use the word regular.
Consistent.
I'm sorry. Consistent. Thank you.
Consistent is the word.
Because I took a job back in April, and I've alluded to it on this podcast before, but I've just felt a major, the thing about my life is that I'm involved in too many things. Naturally, family is a top priority, right?
Right.
And so you got to, make time for that. And then you have Heartland Waterfowl, which is seasonal, but it takes me away a week at a time.
Yeah.
And then we had a trip in beginning of May, I think.
Yep.
And then the job that the Dell's doing the marketing job for Dell's Power Sports and Dell's Honda Powerhouse. There's just been a lot of changes there, like a lot of ways for the business to scale. That's required me to create a lot of content and just be more involved on a leadership role. And so I just haven't made this podcast a priority. But you and I have had some recent discussions about how we can do better at that and scheduling out a few things. And one of the things that we're going to do in making a change with this, and we, some people may know about this already because I put something out there on Facebook about it, but because there's a lot of time invested in the actual production of the podcast, when you do it to the level of which we had been doing it, it takes a lot of time. Like if we do a 3-hour podcast that is videoed, I'm spending 3 hours roughly editing that because I don't have the resources, I guess, to have somebody sitting in the background with a video switcher that's going back and forth from camera 1 to camera 2 whenever that person is talking. So I have to literally put the tracks on what I use as a Premiere Pro. And whenever that person is talking, I go to that clip. And whenever I'm talking, you go to that clip and vice versa. And it just takes time going back and forth through a very lengthy conversation. So we have decided until this podcast is the ability to scale to where we could either cut out one of our ventures and, because it makes sense financially to invest more time into it, or we can hire somebody to be more involved to, relieve us from the time that it takes to do that we were just going to remove the video element from the final podcast. Now, that's not to say we don't video it.
Right.
Because we're videoing this right now. And that hopefully by doing that, it gives me the ability to create the social media assets with the video that kind of shows the little clips and stuff to promote the podcast. So did you have a chance to read through that post that I put up and some of the responses that we got?
I didn't read any of the responses. I saw the posts, but I would love to hear them. While you're pulling that up, I also want to say that in kind of talking, this has been several weeks ago now that we were kind of talking about where do we go from here? Yeah. How do we kind of streamline the process? Because it is one of the things we talked about over the summer when it wasn't a priority for me, because I'm like, I like summer and, things were just kind of changing and different for us. But I do want to make it a priority, but we both have such different schedules to work around. And Dell's is great for you. Like they're flexible with you on you recording podcasts and the hunting, Heartland waterfowl, like that's semi-flexible. Like you already know when your trips are, you know when you leave, we can work around all that and that's all great, but it's still, that's 75 different things we're working around in just trying to schedule a guest. Yeah. And so when we're talking about it, like, okay, so you spend this many hours a week editing and getting the podcast ready. And we're looking at the calendar and your trips. And I'm like, okay, but in between these two trips, we're going to need to record 2 to 3 podcasts to have ready so we can be consistent or regular. So these are the conversations we're having. Right. And so deciding, maybe the video thing just either takes a break. I mean, that's taking a lot of time, and really who's consuming the videos and how often and we still have the video elements. And then that's when we were talking about like the logistics of September. And I said, I've got a list of guest ideas and several that we have like scheduled, but not scheduled. Like they're planned, but not scheduled yet. Right. But at the same time, getting that person's schedule to work with our kind of ridiculous schedule. Right. That's kind of flexible, but kind of not. Sure. And I said, there's going to be times where you're going to be leaving for a trip, which is the boat we're in now. We need 2 to 3 ready to go. Yep. And so, we had just had a conversation about me going to California, and like I had texted Ronnie and I said, August is worse than December. Because we had this conversation in August. Yeah. Like August is literally worse than December. People talk about how busy the December calendar gets. Yeah. But I think August is worse. And like we both have kids with birthdays in August. Yep. And so that adds to it, but the whole back to school and like summers. And then for me, knowing the whole summer coming to an end, and I'm like trying to jam it every time I can go to the pool or whatever that I can. And so that's when I said, and he was telling me about things that have been going on in his life, and I'm telling him about that. And I'm like, this is a podcast. Like, let's just, like, we're going to need another one in September, right? Which is where we are. Yeah. And let's just talk. Do one together. Talk about life. Exactly. Like, I'll interview you. You interview me. Whatever. Sure. Yeah, exactly. So that's part of the reason why we're doing this. And so hopefully you find some enjoyment out of it. So for those who didn't see the post that were wondering, I just put out there like, hey, that, Jillian and I have been discussing about removing the video, and here are the reasons why. Would you be disappointed if we removed the video element from the podcast? Which, keep in mind, you can watch the podcast, or you could have watched the podcast on Spotify or YouTube. Yeah. When I look at the statistics, there are a lot of people who don't even watch. Right. Like they just listen to it on like Google or Amazon or Apple, one of those podcast platforms. Because that's what I told Ronnie. I said, I don't even have regular podcasts that I listen to on a regular basis. But the only time I go to watch one, and this is going to sound terrible, is if whoever the guest is, if I like the way they look, if I want to look at it, or if there's some sort of physical element to it. Like one time I watched one because it was a comedian, and they a lot of times have like a physical element to like their delivery. Gotcha. Right? Yeah. And so that makes sense. Sure. So I'm like, I just don't see people just sitting down and watching a podcast like I sit down or like lay in bed and watch Kardashians. Like I'm not watching a podcast while I fall asleep. So anyway.
So I put the question out there. Yeah. There was there was over 20 responses. Beth says, I love the podcast and just listen to it in my car. Llewellyn says, I love it also and just listen in my car.
Hi, Llewellyn.
Amanda said, depending on who's on and depends if I listen or watch, maybe only film some of them.
I bet she watched Trent Green. Amanda, did you watch Trent Green?
Yeah, I bet so. I bet a lot of the ladies did.
Maybe.
Kim says, I only listen. Okay. So here there's a theme here going that people only listen. Then Chris jumps in and says, definitely enjoy the video, honestly, but understand the time issues, would still listen. So greatly appreciate that. Jeremy really got involved with this conversation. It says, appreciate the chance to offer my 2 cents. Doing what you mentioned here makes total sense. Use the video as needed for promo reels and continue with the audio versions only. Your message is what comes through, and it would continue to, even if the audio was the only format. Keep doing the PRP, and basically he just says that he'll support in any way he can. Matt says, I listen and watch, but you do what makes sense.
That's not Matt Gregg, right?
It is not Matt Gregg.
Okay.
Different Matt. Sure. Matt Bankston, actually, who is a huge, I know Matt. Matt is a huge supporter of Heartland Waterfowl and the Papa Ron podcast. So thank you, Matt. But he says, regardless if it's video, he does watch the video, but even if it's not there, he said he would still consume it. Okay. Oops, I lost it. Our old friend, Rachel Holthouse, not to be confused with Rachel Althouse.
Yes.
Who was a guest.
She's the Hope Dealer.
The Hope Dealer. She was a great guest on this. So if you haven't had a chance to listen to that podcast or that episode, you should check it out. She says, having been both a listener/viewer and subject, I will weigh in. Okay. And I can just hear her say it that way too. Although I do prefer to watch, I would rather see you go to audio plus clips given the added time the current format consumes. I have run the podcast from my TV and taken my own video clips. That helped engagement with my posts. I would like to see if you'd like to see the data. What else? She's kind of going on and on here, but basically she's saying that she would be a supporter and understands why, and that if the opportunity presents itself to bring the video back, that she would love for us to do so. Okay. Stangela says, love the video, but totally understand what the time constraints and the family commitments. Do what is best for both of you. I will still listen. Marcy says, I only listen to the audio. I say, do what works for both of you. Kayla, who we know, or Kyla, I always say Kayla. Kayla, I'm sorry. Dang it. I get caught doing that too many times.
Tell him every time, Kyla.
Kyla, I'm sorry. I do know who you are, and I do know your name. It's just for some reason my mouth doesn't want to say Kyla. It wants to say Kayla. Anyway, she's a listener. She doesn't watch. My cousin jumped in, had a lot of great things to say about the podcast. Her name's Sharon. She goes, glad to hear the Papa Ron podcast isn't done. You've provided hope to so many that have watched and listened, as well as for yourself as you've met and talked off camera. You are wise to guard your time as the consequences affect mental health. I listen to the podcast and have enjoyed each one. I like watching the videos because you're my cousin and it's fun watching you at work. If you and Jillian decide it's best to take a break from the video, I'm certain you will gain listeners. And when God provides the resources to bring back video, you'll experience more growth. Follow God's guidance and you will be blessed abundantly. Aww. Love and hugs, cuz. So that was a cool message. Juliana says, love the video, but I also enjoy listening to them as well. Do what is best for your families. Kenny, who used to work at Mix 93.3 way back in the day, says, I understand the process of editing, plus finding someone who will edit to your desire could be even more time consuming. Your videos show the expressions and response that only the viewer can see. Go video and keep the faith. Perhaps someone will come along and help. So he's saying, don't change. He's saying, keep the faith, keep doing what you're doing. God will bless you and put someone in your place that will allow you the ability to keep doing that. Okay. Deb says, I would be disappointed because I love both of you and love to see you. But aside from that, I love to see the emotion and feeling from the ones being interviewed. Yep. It's different watching an interview than just listening to it. Just my 2 cents, but still love you guys. Julie says, I am not able to watch the video while I work, but I can listen to the podcast You do what you need to do to make it work for both of you. I will support you both. Mary Ann says, it's the message that counts, and I can still hear fairly well. I love your family, so do what's best and just don't quit.
That's so nice.
Damien says, I only listen to the podcast. You have a face made for audio.
Oh, I hope that's to Ronnie.
It's directed at me, I can assure
Damien.
you. Buster, remember Buster? Yeah, Buster says, never watched the video. Okay. John says, I would do just audio for most, but maybe you have a monthly special video episode. That's not a bad suggestion. Gilbert says, definitely got to keep the video. Just my opinion.
Okay.
And then Jill says, well, podcast is a combination of iPod and broadcast, and it started as audio files. So go old school audio and add the video when you can later.
Yeah.
So
I agree with all that.
I would take from that although there were some that would be disappointed if we removed the video, the overwhelming theme is that we would love to have the option at the video, but we understand why you wouldn't make it available. If the opportunity presents itself that you can bring it back, that would be great, but just don't stop doing the podcast.
Yeah. And like you said before, we're going to still, the cameras are still set up, right? Yeah. And so you'll be pulling clips from those. And if there is somebody who's particularly good and you're like, we got to run the audio or the video of this, you know, or just, every once in a while, I've got time to do it this week, so I'm going to do it, just as a bonus. You mentioned, and I lost it now. Oh, no, there it is. You mentioned Rachel.
Yeah.
Holthouse. That made me think of John Cantrell that was a guest a while back. So he's going to be fighting in Kansas City. I thought we should mention that. Because I feel like our last podcast with Kevin Timmons, we kind of referred back to our Ryan Lefevre podcast and John Barnes. And so there's lots of that cross-referencing. But so we talked to Rachel Holthouse, the Hope dealer. She's an episode. You want to check it out if you haven't. John Cantrell also. So September 23rd at Legends Field, rockandrumblekc.com is the website.
Yeah.
And so he's going to be boxing.
And I think I'm going to be there.
Are you?
Yeah. So you remember how I kind of got tied up in that by going to Topeka with my buddy Corey and Jeremy.
Yeah.
And so the three of us have been in a group text talking about going. And so I think I'm going to be there in hopes that I can see that.
Nice. So it looks like, and I mean, I've never been to one of these kind of events before, but I guess he's the main event, right? His fight.
I believe it is. Yeah. I believe he's
There's MMA, bare knuckle, boxing, and kickboxing. So it's
I didn't realize there was all those divisions.
It's not just the two of them. And then there's like a post-fight party at the Hollywood Casino. So
can I tell you another story that I haven't even told you?
Yes.
I don't know why or how I haven't told you this. So I'm in North Dakota a couple of weeks ago filming an episode for Heartland Waterfowl. Okay. And I'm having troubles with a leaky tire. Like I can't even do a full scout at night because my tire's about to go flat.
Oh no.
So I'm really pissed off.
Right.
This is a very inconvenience and I'm just not happy with my life at that moment because of a tire. I understand.
Right.
I was being dramatic.
Perspective. Right.
So I go to this little tiny town to get a patch put on my tire. I get a call from the Kansas Lottery. Yeah. Out of nowhere.
Okay.
And they want me to call. I didn't take the call. They left a message, but they said, we wanted you to call us back. I mean, did I win some money and I didn't know about this, right?
Buy a ticket?
I called them back and they're like, yes. So coming up on, I think they said September 7th, it's this weekend. Okay. So this podcast, by the time this podcast airs, this will have already happened.
Okay.
But as it's recording, it's coming up this weekend.
Okay.
They wanted to ask me and Rachel Holthouse to be dignitaries for the race. So,
what?
Yeah, because the portion of the proceeds are going towards mental health.
What?
And they heard about my story and they heard Rachel's story on this podcast.
Stop it.
And so Rachel, I don't know who's going to do what, but the dignitaries get to do two things. One of them will get to wave the green flag to start the race.
Stop it.
And the other one gets on the microphones and says, drivers, start your engines.
Okay, well, you know how that's going to play out.
I hope I get the microphone.
You will get the microphone. And listen, if you didn't watch, first of all, if you didn't listen to the episode with Rachel, do that.
Yes.
If you didn't watch it,
Yes.
watch it because she is
Animated,
yes. Beautiful,
yes.
Flashy. Like, she will come out there in
for
rhinestones.
Sure. Oh, yeah.
Or something.
All the bells and
Fringe.
whistles. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All of it. Yeah, all of it.
Oh,
so yeah, it was
so
a cool thing. It was a cool thing. It was almost like a little overwhelming, and it was almost uncomfortable. Like if I'm just being honest, like when I first got it was like
so cool.
Well, my point to all this is not necessarily about me. It's about the podcast.
Right.
And the fact that we feel like sometimes that we got this little tiny podcast over here, and there's a few people that reach out and they say that it has some sort of impact, but this went to a corporate level to where the Kansas Lottery felt like, hey, we want to bring awareness to these people and to this thing and effort to continue the mission to help in mental health. And that was very, very humbling.
So cool.
So anyway, we got that coming up this weekend. Anyway, I don't know what else is going on. I had a scare. We had a scare in the family recently. I guess I did tell you about that, but not many people know about it unless you live in our neighborhood. And the reason it's funny in this neighborhood because where RP Enterprises Global Headquarters is located is in this like little fine area where we get double taxed on first responders. So if you live in the Lee Summit area, you'll be aware of the fact there's the Lee Summit Fire Department, and then there's Prairie View Fire Department. So whenever there's a call from anybody on this street, it's not the entire neighborhood. It might be. It's part of this neighborhood, this area that we live in. Oh my
goodness.
And so we had to make a 911 call. And so we had double fire trucks, double ambulances come rolling in. Gosh. So that's double the alert to the entire neighborhood that there's something going on down the street. I had left Dell's, got off work to go pick up my boys from daycare, and my wife calls and says that she had got a call from the daycare that our youngest, who's just over 1 year old, his name's Rylan, or as I call him, Bubba. He was spiking a fever and had just vomited. Like, well, I'm in the truck. I'm on my way to get them. Got there. He looked absolutely terrible, but didn't make a peep on the whole ride home. Got him home, put him in the high chair, got him some juice, and some Fruit Loops. I was just getting some like finger food, and he started to perk up a little bit until Rachel had come in. I say the back door, but it's like the door from the garage. Yeah. So she came in through there, and it's typical that when he sees her, he starts to cry, put out his arms because he wants her to hold him. Sure. And so he started crying, and at the same time, my mother-in-law's over at the house because she's trying to get my daughter ready for Girl Scouts. And so there's just things going on. My middle child, who's my son, Rhett, he wants to play baseball. So he's running around with the baseball. I mean, it's just a circus in here. So I pull out Rylan, or Bubba, and I'm holding him in my left arm, and I'm doing something. My attention is away from him, looking in another direction. And all of a sudden I start to feel the weight of Rylan go backwards, like over my arm. Like he's falling out of my arm. So I go and I grab him, and his eyes are rolling into the back of his head. His lips are turning blue.
Oh my gosh.
And he begins having a seizure.
Oh my gosh.
And
this has never happened before.
Never. I've experienced it before with other people. Like I've witnessed it, but I've never had it happen that close to me.
I don't even think I've ever seen that happen.
So I'm thinking, is he choking on a Fruit Loop, or is there one of those chocolate covered? They're not chocolate, but it's the white yogurt covered raisins type of thing. Yeah. And so is he choking on one of those? So I'm grabbing him and I'm shaking him. My mother-in-law absolutely loses her ever living mind. And in her frantic stage, my daughter now is dropping to her, like literally, no exaggeration, dropping into her knees and just screaming in fear. My wife held it together the best. She works in the medical field, so she was able to, not to say that she wasn't concerned or, but she, and inside of me, I'm not really physically or verbally making, out of control, but inside I'm a wreck. I'm losing it inside. I'm shaking him. I'm freaking out. I'm holding him real close. And I got to thinking about this like a day later. I bet I kissed that kid 1,000 times, literally, because I was just holding him and just kissing him on the head saying, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay. Hang in there, buddy. Hang in there. While he's just convulsing or whatever that word is. And this thing goes on for like 3 minutes. I would guess it may have been a little longer than that. Which may not sound like a long time, but it sounds like an eternity. It sounded a long time. The thing that was really comforting is that, and my wife, thankfully, she thought of it. She sent her mom next door to the neighbors who are nurse practitioners. Oh. And she came over and was like, yeah, just hold him tight. He's having a seizure. It was very calm, cool, collected. But my wife had already called the ambulance and so they come in and they put all the stuff on him and his vitals were fine. Everything is fine. So we didn't end up going to the hospital. We went to the doctor the next day and everything checked out. But here's the thing that I learned. I guess when children I don't know if it's exclusive to children, but I guess it's not necessarily, they call it a temperature induced seizure. And it's not necessarily the extent of the temperature. So I think he was right around 104 at one point. It's not how high the temperature is. It's how fast you go from normal to that extensive, how quickly it happens that causes that. And so he was, I think, starting to break the temperature, but he was already not feeling well or sick, running a fever, had some sort of virus, and then got all worked up when she got home. So he's reaching and crying, making these exertions and then crying. And then I think just getting all worked up and the fever spiked really quick and he just goes into a seizure. So, wow, that was a bit spooky. But the next day I stayed home with him and he was back into getting into everything. Like nothing had ever changed. And he seems to be like nothing ever happened now. And so we're blessed that everything's okay. But that was a little bit of a scary moment that's happened in our life recently.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So, but look, here's the good news. For those who are listening, as we get ready to wrap this up, we are committed to continue doing this podcast. And as we mentioned before, this is something that is special to Jillian and I. I'm incredibly blessed that she is still in my life, even after the radio days and even after all those crazy radio days. She still wants to hang around me. Mm-hmm. And she's a believer in what we're trying to do here. And so I appreciate you so much. And we've got some things, I don't know, do we want to kind of promote like maybe what we got coming up in the near future? Let's talk about this one. So we've got a guy by the name of Paul, who I was introduced to by my cousin who used to live in South Carolina, but she lives in Florida now. And I'm probably going to screw up the pronunciation of his name. Oh, hi, Roscoe. Oh. Just help yourself into the studio there, buddy.
Roscoe, everybody.
Hey, Remington, how you doing? So the mascots of the Papa Ron podcast have showed up. So his name is Paul. I'm going to call it Frazee. You think it's Frazee?
I don't know. I'm shutting.
That's fine. Hey, lay down.
I don't know. I feel like
it's F-R-A-S-E. Paul F-A. I'm sorry, F-R-A-S-E.
I feel Frazee, like it's
phrase. Frazee. Okay, could be.
Is he French?
Anyway, he's a former NFL football player. Spent 11 years in the league, and he's played for the Green Bay Packers. He's played for the Jets, the Baltimore Ravens. I think I'm leaving out Jacksonville Jaguars. He's got an incredible story. He's kind of a guy who's got I don't know. Could you speak to it better than I can?
I'm looking for the text. I talked to him. Well, now it's been a while back, but let's see here. Sorry.
That's all right.
I'm not really ready for that.
I know that he travels a lot, does like some motivational speaking or just does speaking engagements. And so he's pretty unique and incredible guy that my cousin introduced me to a while back. And so we are trying to work out a time to get him on because he lives in, I think he lives in Florida, or maybe he lives up in the upper Northeast. I know he spent some time up there.
Definitely East Coast. I know that because when he sent me his like available times, it was all Eastern time.
Right.
But yeah, he's an author. He like when he sent me the things that he could talk about, he's like NFL.
Yeah.
One of the things is orphan disease, which I don't actually know what that is.
I don't either.
But he sounds very interesting. He's very well spoken. And mental health is another
good.
So obviously that's a good fit for us. But we were talking about this when we were doing this planning that some of the most interesting guests can be someone who nobody knows their name.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like they're not famous. Everybody has a story.
Yep.
Everybody has something to say. So I think that's good. I've got a list, and none of the rest of them, well, except for Dave Stewart's on my list, and I have not had the courage to call
What?
him.
I gave you his direct number.
I'm so nervous. Listen, Ronnie, when I was a kid, I was in love with Dave Stewart.
I think you still are, is what it sounds like.
No, it's like also Jeff Montgomery. I'm not saying he's going to be on the podcast. I'm just saying it was in the same time frame of my life. Like I'm talking kid. I wasn't even a teenager.
So I know Kirk Cameron's in there somewhere.
Cameron's in there. Jeff Montgomery from the Royals. Clint Black at one point.
Okay.
I just was like dreamy eyed over these people. And
Gotcha.
So we watched Channel 9 News all the time when I was a kid. So like Dave Stewart, I was just major crush.
All right.
So anyway, I have met him, and I'm sure I was an idiot, but I haven't gotten up the courage to ask him. Like people know. I'm just saying that's one of the names on the list that people would know.
Are you like 40 now? How old are you?
44.
Yeah. A 44-year-old woman who's still struggling over a childhood crush.
Yeah.
Yeah.
35 years ago.
Yeah.
Which then you say that, and like I don't want to say that to him either, because
Yeah,
then,
Dave, if you're listening.
No, but I mean,
Hope you don't feel old.
That's what I mean. Like I don't want to be like, oh gosh, like ooh, that makes me feel old to say something was 35 years ago or whatever, 30 years ago.
All right. Well, if you can't call him, let me know. I'll call him.
I will.
We'd love to have him on though,
nervous.
because he's got all kinds of stories. And look, and here's the thing with this podcast, we don't necessarily want it to be all doom and gloom. We want it to be inspirational, motivational. As much as it's about mental health, I want it to be about personal development. I want it to be about the things that are important to us. As long as we continue having a faith-based foundation to this, then that's what this is going to be about. But ultimately, I want it to be compelling,
interesting,
yes.
something you can take away from it,
Yes.
and like at the end of it, think, oh, I thought, like you get a couple tidbits of something. Now I don't know that you got that today.
No, there's some stuff there. Maybe they learned about seizures. Maybe they learned about going to SoFi Stadium, and it's not as bad being on the 405.
The 405 is not as
Exactly.
bad as
But here's one thing we would like to ask. If you are a hardcore regular listener, and I guess, or you don't even have to be hardcore. If it's something that you've recently enjoyed and you kind of get the idea, the gist, or what we're trying to do here with this podcast, we would love your input, and we would love your suggestion on people that you might think would be someone that has a testimony or a story that would be compelling or informative or, what am I trying to say? Inspirational.
Yeah.
Motivational, things along those lines. Quick way to get a hold of us is by going to paparonradio.com. Or you can email me, Ronnie at paparonradio.com. That's PAPA radio.com. Or I guess it would be PAPA Ron at radio.com. Anyway, the point is, feel free to reach out. You can reach out on any of our social platforms. Feel free to please do that also if you haven't done so already. We're going to try to do better about getting more content out there for you to follow and engage with. So you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, along with YouTube and any of the podcast platforms. Am I leaving anything out?
I don't think so.
Is there anything new on the horizon for you? Because there is for me, and I'm really excited about it.
There is for you.
Uh-huh.
Now I'm feeling jealous.
I mean, I've already told you about the Kansas lottery thing. That was pretty cool.
That
I wasn't
is so cool.
And I wasn't expecting that.
That's really cool.
So I'm leaving Wednesday. One of the reasons why we're recording now is because we can't record next week because I am going on a elk hunt in Montana, and one of my best friends, and probably is literally my best friend. He was a childhood friend since we were yay tall. He was the best man at my wedding. And we stay in touch regularly. The only thing I don't like about him is he's a KU fan, but other than that, he's a pretty cool dude. I love him and his wife, Shelly, and all of his kids.
Aww.
Anyway, so Jake and I are going to Montana. We've been trying for 4 years to draw a Montana elk tag, and we finally drew. And so not only did we draw, and we're leaving on the 13th, the first day of hunting is on the 15th. And guess what's on the 15th?
Your birthday.
My birthday. Yes, it is.
Oh my gosh.
The big
How old are you going to be?
48. 48. Yeah, can you believe that? 48.
I know, it sounds really old.
It is because it is. So anyway, we're going to be out there hunting for 5 days unless we tag out early. And not only are we hunting for elk, which is like a once in a lifetime hunt for us, and it's on my birthday, but we're filming it, and it could be content for Heartland Bowhunter.
Oh, I was going to say, wait, this isn't waterfowl. Like,
No.
what are you talking about?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. Yeah. So this is, we're a product of
Yeah.
Heartland Bowhunter.
Yeah,
They started before us, and they
Yeah.
are widely known, and they're huge.
Huge.
And so they said, yeah, we want to send a camera crew out there to film this. And so,
That's so cool.
and then when I get back, I'm here for a couple of weeks, and I turn around and go to Saskatchewan in
Yeah.
October.
Yeah.
And then the hunting season is in full effect. And then so we're going to do our very best to offer as many episodes as we can more consistently as possible. But we know that we've really kind of let you down, and we've slacked. I don't know if I want to say slacked off. We've just had our priorities, in places that they needed to be at that time.
Yeah.
And so now we want to get back into the groove of being more consistent, and by not providing the video, that will allow us to do that. So unless I'm leaving anything out, I guess we'll wrap it up, huh?
Works for me.
That was fun.
I know.
We should do just you and me more often.
We probably will through hunting season.
Yeah,
Because
we
I'll
could
be
do
like,
that.
Ronnie, we have to have, he'll be like, yeah, it's fine. We're good. I'll be
Right.
like, no, you're going to be gone from this date to this date. We have to record.
I didn't realize that we were going to be able to come up with an hour's worth of content right there.
That was an hour?
That was an hour. Like right on the dot, an hour of content.
I don't know that there's work in all of that, but
All right, so that's going to do it. Episode 41 for Jillian Gregg. I'm Ronnie Phillips. Thank you so much for listening to the Papa Ron Podcast.
You've been listening to the Papa Ron Podcast. If you enjoy this podcast, hit subscribe now on the podcast platform. Follow the Papa Ron Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok.
And while you're there, like, comment, and share.
Until next time, thanks for listening to the Papa Ron Podcast. Papa Ron Podcast. Papa Ron Podcast.